Well, I'm pretty sure some of y'all are gonna want to cancel me after this one. I will tell you ahead of time, if you use live scope, live imaging, Humminbird Mega Live Imaging, Garmin Live Scope, any of those things, proceed to watch this video with caution, okay? You're warned. You're about to get my full opinion on the technology, my full opinion on how some people are using it, and that's what Raw and Uncut is about, all right? If you're new to the channel, my name is Jeremy. This is Fishing Lone Star. This is a new series I'm doing called Raw and Uncut. What does that mean? You're getting my raw opinion on some topics. It is uncut because I've literally pushed record on the video and I'm not editing it, all right? It's just a straight roll, a straight one cut, one take. You get my thoughts on this topic. And this particular episode, episode 2, is on live imaging or forward-facing sonar. Now, if you watched episode 1 or you didn't, we were talking about walleye cheating and that kind of scandal, if you will. But even broader than that is all the cheating, lying, and deception that goes on in the bass fishing world. So go back and watch episode 1 if you haven't. But episode 2, we're talking about live imaging and forward-facing sonar. All right, so I'm gonna address this from 3 different angles. The first one is gonna be the professional bass fishing world, all right? So should they use it, should they not use it? We're gonna talk about that first. Next, I'm gonna talk about your average everyday angler or like the influencer slash content creator, the way some of those guys are using it. And then I'm going to talk about the overall impact to the fishing industry because a lot of people have questions and thoughts about that as well. So I'm going to address all 3 of those topics. Let's dive in. We are 2 minutes in. I've got a timer over here to make sure that I don't ramble too long. We're 2 minutes into this video. All right, professional bass fishing world and using live imaging. Now, I will tell you on my particular boat, it's probably helpful for me to say, I run a Humminbird up at the front. I run a Humminbird on the console. It is a Helix 9. That just refers to the size of the screen, 9 inches, and it is a Generation 3. The one at the console does run side imaging, which is a view off the back of the boat. So after I've passed underground structure, I can see it once I've passed it, and down imaging off the back. And then this transducer right here runs down imaging as well, all right? So that's what I run on my boat. I would like to get Humminbird 360 so I can actually see 360 around me instead of just side imaging, but 360 is not live, much like a forward-facing sonar or live imaging is, okay? So just some differences. That's what I run on my boat. Professional bass fishing though, I don't ever foresee or foreshadow a time period where professional bass anglers, both MLF or Major League Fishing, I'm sorry, that is MLF or the Bassmaster Elite Series, that either of them get rid of forward-facing sonar, okay? I'll come back to why first. Let me talk about the fact that they're using it. The fact that professional anglers are using live imaging, I personally think is ridiculous. Now that's gonna sound like that's a knock on them. It's not a knock on them. I'm actually like praising them because those guys and girls, for those that are female anglers, they're good enough to go catch fish without live imaging. Let's just be real, all right? They are absolutely good enough to show up on a lake and to pre-fish it for 2, 3, sometimes even 4 days. I don't know if they've pre-fished 4 days, but 2 or 3 days to practice on a lake, to figure out the pattern, understand where fish are, what they're biting, what they're not biting, then to go out and need to perform and deliver a 1 day, 2 day, a 3 day tournament. These pro guys are absolutely good enough to be able to go do that without live imaging. So they absolutely do not need it, in my opinion. I quite honestly think it's ridiculous that they use it. The tournament format, though, will never get rid of it. Again, I'll come back to why in just a moment. The other aspect of it, from a professional perspective, like watching a professional fishing, if it is a tournament that sets up for live imaging, and there's guys that are showing on MLF or the Elite Series, and I'm watching it on my TV or my iPad and streaming it, I'll just flat out turn it off. Like, it is the most boring thing ever to watch. Some guy standing on his boat looking at a screen and not even paying attention to surroundings, not trying to figure out patterns, just simply watching a screen and just seeing if there's fish there and if they're gonna bite or not, or let me switch up my jerk bait color because I see they're not biting it. Like, I personally think that it's ridiculous. I think I've used that word 3 times now. It's ridiculous that pro guys are using it. They don't need it. They don't need it. It's boring to watch. They're good enough to go catch fish without it, and they don't need it, plain and simple. Again, highly opinionated video. You may disagree with me, you may not agree with me. I'm sorry, you may disagree or you may agree. Either one is fine. It's your opinion, you're entitled to it. Hopefully you can also understand mine as well. Now, the reason why for the bass fishing world, the pro bass fishing world, it will never go away, in my opinion, is because Humminbird, Lowrance, and Garmin pay way too much money to those trails and those tournament series and advertising dollars, which I'm sure is then used to fund the paychecks and the purses that get paid out. I just don't believe that, given that they're probably one of their biggest advertisers, that either one of those tournament trails are going to punish their advertisers by not allowing their latest and greatest technology, okay? I just don't see it happening. Anytime I'm streaming any of those, MLF, the Elite Series, any of those tournaments on TV, or again, just streaming it online, about every second or third commercial is Humminbird, Garmin, or Lowrance, okay? Now, also, those three companies, Humminbird, Lowrance, and Garmin, pay a lot of money, or even in just product, to the professional anglers to use it as well. So you have these advertisers, these companies advertising to the big tournament trails, okay? So lots of money coming in there. You also have Humminbird, Garmin, and Lowrance giving a lot of money to the professional anglers to promote it as well. So it's not gonna go away from there either. So all that combined, there's no way this is ever going to go away. Just not gonna happen. My iPad screen went out. Let me tap it real fast. All right, that way I can still see it. So it's just not gonna happen. Like they're not going to penalize these companies and not allow them to use their technology, because it's going to diminish the dollars that the pro anglers are getting, and it's going to diminish the dollars that the tournament trails are getting. But if you truly want to stop it, then stop watching, because you are the product. You are the audience, right? So you have the power and the control to do that if you so choose. So stop watching anytime they break them out, and I promise you, these tournaments will have no choice but to change their perspective, because there's no marketing dollars at all if there's no one to market to, which is you. All right, this will be the only cut in this video. A real quick plug, just because I'm not really talking a whole lot of like fishing techniques, but right now it is cranking season. I've got a medium diver tied on here, but if you're throwing medium diving crankbaits, square bills, shallow diving, etc., one of the great reels to try for cranking, as I hit my rod on the ceiling, is the Lose BB1 Pro. This is the Gen 2. I love the squared off top here. It's a little bit bigger reel, so it's not necessarily a low profile, but that's because the spool is just enormous. But this thing casts a freaking mile, which is amazing for crankbaits. So make sure you check out the Lose BB1 Pro if you really like cranking. You're probably gonna wanna get a couple of these. These things are amazing. I'd always heard it, but I recently picked up a couple, began trying them, and I do absolutely love them. So make sure you check out the Lose BB1 Pro. And as always, I'm throwing that on a TFO tactical glass bass rod. Those are pretty much what I use for my cranking sticks. Let's get back to the video. All right, enough of the pro guys. Let's now transition to just your everyday angler, your average angler, influencers, content creators, the non-professional category. First and foremost, it's fishing. All right, guys, so at the end of the day, we're talking about bass fishing. You can go use whatever you want to use. You can use live bait if you want to use live bait. Guys do it on Lake Okeechobee all the time, okay? You can even keep the fish if you want to keep the fish, all right? We'll cover that in another video. But you can do whatever you want to. So if you want to use live imaging, go for it. Go use live imaging. I personally think it's boring as all get out, and it takes the fun and the excitement away from, I guess, the chase and the hunt of bass fishing, for me just to sit here, look at a screen, and in some cases, there's some guys that just troll around on their boat and they don't make a cast at all until they see a fish on their graph or they see a fish big enough, right? And then like, oh, there's a fish, I'll finally go ahead and make a cast. I've literally seen videos of guys that are just sitting on their trolling motor, set back on their stool or their seat, and just trolling around. They're not making a cast at all until they see a fish big enough on the graph to cast at. To me, that's not fishing, right? That's not fishing at all. That's like the deer hunter that sits in his blind, sets up corn, and just basically waits for the deer to come right there and then shoots it. Like, I'm sorry, that's just baiting. That's not really hunting. And I think the same for fishing. So now I've offended the hunters as well. I'm probably gonna never hear the end of this. Anyways, I think what it also does let me just say this. If you have live imaging, here's the stance I take. You either need it to catch fish or you don't need it to catch fish. Now, Tyler Anderson and I, Tyler's Real Fishing, had this discussion thread. We went back and forth one day on Instagram. I've had this conversation with Alex, Oklahoma's worst angler. I've had this conversation with several others. Sorry, my dog's going crazy. My wife came out here to check on the kids real quick. So I did have to do a quick cut. So I've had this conversation with several of those guys, right? All guys that I'm friends with, all guys that I know, they all use live imaging, all right? Or forward-facing sonar. They can use it if they want to, right? You can use it if you want to. It's not cheating. I've never once said it was cheating. Some people say it is. Quite honestly, I think those that use it, think that everyone is saying they're cheating. I'm not saying anyone's cheating by using it because there's no rules against using it. Now, if it was banned or outlawed or not allowed in tournaments and you were caught still using it in a tournament, now that is cheating. But it's not. It's not outlawed or banned or illegal, etc. So you can use it. So it's not cheating. However, here's my perspective. I just wish people would own up to the fact that they're using it. Because there's a lot of guys out there that act like they're all of a sudden becoming this great angler, right? And catching these massively big fish that they've never caught before because they've never had the technology before. And now they have the technology, they want to promote themselves or promote what they're doing as if like they're the ones doing it, and they're not even really the ones doing it. It's the technology that's doing it. Well, not this technology because this isn't live imaging, but you get my point. So here's my take on it all. And it's simply this. If you need live imaging to catch that fish, then my biggest, complaint is when people don't acknowledge that. Because what it leads you to believe, a consumer or an angler who's not using it, it leads you to believe that you can go catch that same fish. And you can't. You can't go catch that same fish because you're not using the same technology. That's like me if all I did was fish private lakes, right? Which I do fish private water fishing and private water lakes, absolutely. But if that's all I ever did, but I never told you that I was doing that, and I was just going and catching all these big fish and monster fish on these private lakes and private ponds, etc. But I led you to believe there was public water and that you could go catch this, that you could go catch the same fish that you actually don't have access to, then I would be misleading you, and it would lead you to become frustrated. And then eventually, like some people I've even heard and seen that they just stop fishing altogether because they don't perceive themselves to be out catching the same fish other guys are. So I do think that it's bad for the industry in that sense, because you're leading people on. Now, if someone says, hey, I owe it all to my live imaging, then great, like call it out. But you either need the technology to catch the fish, or if you say, oh, I don't need the technology to catch the fish, then don't use the technology, take it off your boat. But the fact of the matter is, the majority of these fish that are being caught, especially the really big fish, they're not being caught without live imaging. Now, that statement is gonna sting a little with some people. I apologize, I don't mean for that to be brash or harsh. I'm just stating my opinion. And why I personally don't use it is because I want to be good enough to go identify where fish should be, to go identify patterns, to go be able to read water, to be able to read my environment that I'm in, and to understand fish patterns and catch fish where they're at, not by looking at my graph or my screen to see if there's a fish there. Is it swimming this way? Is it swimming that way? Is it coming towards my lure? Did it react to my lure? Do I need to go a little bit deeper? Do I need to change colors? Like that's just not fun for me, all right? So my style of fishing, that's not fun for me. You will not catch me ever using live imaging. You can put that in writing. I will not ever be using live imaging. It's just not my style of fishing. For those that are, that's great. My only rub is just disclose that you're using live imaging so that everyone else knows that that's what you use to catch that fish, that you weren't just using, I guess, live imaging technology. All right, the last piece of this is, does it impact the fishing industry? Some people say, oh, well, over time, they're gonna get used to it. They're gonna be able to, like fish will know when they're being pinged, if you will, with that sonar. Some people say that it won't. Some people think that all these big fish are gonna be caught and it's gonna, therefore impact future fish to be, bred. Some people say, oh, well, now we're able to catch these fish, like for example in Texas, and take them to Texas Parks and Wildlife, and they can breed them and create even more bigger fish. I think there's two sides to that story, so I'm not necessarily going to take a stance on that. I don't really think it's going to impact the future of fishing either way. Now, crappie fishing, that's different because a lot of crappie anglers catch and cook. So the more of those you're catching, I think that actually could have the potential to wipe out that species. But in terms of or drastically reduce, I shouldn't say wipe out, but drastically reduce the crappie species. For largemouth bass fishing, I don't really see it having a huge impact. Texas Parks and Wildlife did a study, I think about a year ago, on Lake Fork, and kind of what they found was that some fish stay in the same place. Some fish move around a ton. Some fish, like one particular fish that my brother caught on my boat, had been caught like 4 times in 3 or 4 months, all on 4 different lures, all in the same spot. So that fish didn't move, and that fish pretty much ate any lure that came to him. Other fish were moving around. They weren't ever caught again, but they could ping them and see where they're at. So I think my point is just like humans, every fish is different. I think some will pick up on the live imaging sonar, some won't. And so I don't really think it's going to impact bass fishing that much. A couple of objections people say is, oh, well, even if you have live imaging, people think that you just all of a sudden are going to catch all these fish, and you still got to know how to work a lure, and the live imaging doesn't catch the fish itself. Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. I don't think anyone says that just because you have live imaging, you're also going to catch fish. I don't think anyone's ever really said that. But on the flip side, without live imaging, you wouldn't be catching those fish. So if you're gonna say, oh, well, the live imaging doesn't catch fish themselves, you still gotta know how to work a lure or a jerk bait or an A-rig or whatever, well, then you could also say on the other side of that, well, without live technology or live imaging, you wouldn't even come close even though that fish was there, and therefore you never would have caught it either, all right? So that's my response to, oh, you still have to know how to catch them, or, oh, live technology doesn't just automatically catch them themselves. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. I mean, I could put the same rod, reel, lure, etc. in someone else's hand that doesn't fish as much as me, and I would still catch more fish than them because I know how to work the lure and retrieve it. So you could say that about fishing in general, not just live imaging. That's kind of my thoughts on all of it. Would love to know your feedback. Just for argument's sake, would love to know if you agree or disagree on those points. I'll absolutely comment back. I try to comment on every single person's comment on these videos, and would love to hear your responses to that. So let me know. I've already been called the Randy Blaylock Jr. Because of his stance on this. I just feel like it's not cheating, but I absolutely feel like it is a huge advantage, and people either need it or don't need it. And I would rather catch fish and say that I don't need it. And if you are catching fish with it, then I would just say, please just disclose that. Don't lead someone on. Don't lead them to believe that they can catch these fish without using it, because that's just not accurate. It's not fair. I don't think it's a true depiction of what fishing is, and that's just kind of my stance on that. All right, guys. For the future videos of these, I'm gonna do a different format. We're gonna take a hat or a bowl. I'm gonna put all the topics that you guys have suggested. In just a bowl, and I'm going to draw it actually live. So we're actually going to go, really raw and uncut, and I'm going to just draw a topic, read it, and we're going to roll what my thoughts and opinion are on it. So stay tuned for that, and I appreciate you guys checking out this video. In the future ones, if you have any topics you want me to cover, please drop them below. I'll be more than happy to cover that for you. And if nobody's told you today, God loves you, and so do I. Peace out.